Hey, welcome back. This is a song between. Today we're talking about how to quiet your soul. Let's go. Hey friends, welcome back to A Song Between. My name is Pastor Gray Ewing, pastor of New Valley Downtown in Phoenix, Arizona. And while we can't gather for in-person physical worship right now due to the coronavirus, we have chosen instead to gather together every day over the Psalms. In particular, what we've begun with is the Psalms of Ascents, Psalms 120 through 134, as a great starting place, a song between. These songs that will help us in this in-between time. So thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel below and you'll get daily notifications when we post new videos. Today, we have one of my favorite Psalms, one that I've returned to many times over. It's very short. It may be, I think, the second shortest chapter in all of the scriptures. The first one being Psalm 117, but this is Psalm 131. Psalm 131 is where we're going to turn today, and we're considering the question of how do I quiet my soul? And the psalmist gives us his thoughts, his testimony of that. Let's turn to it now, and let's also, as we turn to it, let's turn our hearts towards the Lord and spend just a moment preparing to hear from his word. Psalm 131, a song of ascents of David. O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. But I have calmed and quieted my soul, like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. O Israel, hope in the Lord from this time forth and forevermore. Psalm 131 has this beautiful line that I think creates this balm in our souls already. It says, I have calmed and quieted my soul. I mean, that is such a desirable state to say, I have calmed and quieted my soul. Maybe even that second part, the quieting of the soul. We live in such a time of noise. And what's interesting to me is that even when all of our economics are shutting down and the businesses around us are shutting down, maybe even going out of business, and we're used to seeing signs everywhere and advertisements, I don't really feel like the noise in my life has gone down all that much. Most of the noise that I experience is from advertisements on my phone and from the podcasts that I listen to and from the music that I listen to and from the announcements and the emails that I read. And all of this noise about the coronavirus is everywhere, from everybody giving a statement about how they're responding to it. There's just so much noise, even maybe more noise than before we were in this place. And so I think we need more than ever this idea of calming and quieting our souls. We want to talk about that today. The psalmist says there's really two preconditions to get to the place of a calm and quiet soul. Before you can calm and quiet your soul, you have to meet these two things, and they are surprising in a sense. The first one is humility. Humility is a state that you arrive at before you can calm and quiet your soul. Why? He says in the first lines of the psalm, O Lord, my heart is not lifted up. My eyes are not raised too high. Because he's saying, I'm keeping this humility right now. Now, how is that related to having a calm and quiet soul? Well, the answer is obvious if you just think about it for a moment. The fact that we believe that we are in control of our lives, we have this arrogant assumption sometimes about our lives that we actually are in control and that we understand something of what's going on and we know the proper path towards peace. But that is something the psalmist says you have to let go of. When you let go of needing to be in control all the time and to know everything with this kind of arrogant outlook towards life, That is a precondition to experiencing the peace of God. Because it is not true that you know everything. It's not true that you should lift up your eyes to the Lord in the sense that you know what He knows and you can do what He does. And so bring yourself into this place of humility first. Secondly, he says simplicity. Simplicity is a precondition of a calm soul. I do not occupy myself with things too great and too marvelous for me. Now that can seem like he's putting himself down, like I'm a simple person. I don't occupy myself with these great and marvelous things. But actually, simplicity and a simple approach to life is necessary for having a calm and quiet soul. Why? Because we have complicated our lives with all these things that bring in noise. And so our phones bring in noise, our email accounts bring in noise, our investments bring in noise. All of these things that we've added to our lives, we can sometimes begin to believe that we are this marvelous machine. We are this people that understand the world. And he says, no, bring your humility, but also bring your simplicity for a calm and quiet soul. If you notice a theme here, the anxiety that we have about the noise in our lives really comes from the future and not knowing the future. If you think about it, anxiety is always about the future. The past is something that we can begin to understand, and the present is something that we can at least watch unfold. But the future is something that's always cloaked in mystery, and so the future is always the place of anxiety. Even if you're anxious about something that happened to you a long time ago, the reason that you're anxious about it is because you're worried about the effects that it may have on your future relationships, your future ability to be loved. Whatever it may be, anxiety exists in the future. And so what does Jesus tell us? He says, do not be anxious about your life. Do not be concerned about tomorrow. Be concerned with today. Today has its own troubles. And so the preconditions for having a calm and quiet soul are simplicity and humility. We get this beautiful phrase, but I have calmed and quieted my soul. And what is the image that he gives us? Like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. He repeats that phrase, a weaned child, a child that has been weaned. What does that mean? What does he mean that his soul is like that? Here's what I think he means. What is a weaned child? It's a child who is still very dependent on its mother, and yet has come to the place where it doesn't have to cry for every single meal, right? When a child is weaned, it can eat on its own sometimes, but it's still dependent on the mother. And I think that is what he's saying about this state of his soul. I have come to trust you, Lord. I know that everything that I have comes from your hand, but I am believing in the meantime, I don't have to cry out for every single thing. My soul is calm because you are this great mother to me. And so we see this is the goal of what it means to have a calm and quiet soul, is to be in this state where we depend on the Lord completely, but we also trust him to take care of us. How do we get there? It begins by meditating on Psalms like this. I encourage you, just make Psalm 131. It's only 3 verses long, your prayer today throughout the day. It's not just a how-to, it's a testimony of God's faithfulness. And one of the ways that we can begin to be calm is to read Psalms over and over again and pray them back to the Lord so that we can get to that place of complete dependence and yet complete trust in him.